from EPG Pathshala. In the previous module, we have seen the RSA algorithm outline and the functions like GCD, greatest common divisor, and the second function was torsion function. Today we will be working around with RSA algorithm. So, once again just check what we studied in the RSA algorithm. P and Q will be two prime integers, N would be nothing but multiplied by P and Q. Encryption key we have to choose E such that E will be between 1 and 5n. 5n is a torsion function. One more criteria we need to satisfy is GCD of 5n and E equal to 1. You all have in mind when GCD greatest common divisor of two numbers is 1, that means they are relatively prime. D is equal to E inverse mod 5n. I emphasized in the previous module as well that torsion function should be used while calculating the encryption key and decryption key. When you calculate the ciphertext, it is nothing but m raised to e mod n. All terms are clear to you. M is the message which you are trying to send, E is the exponent key which we took here in the third step. Then we have seen mod n is nothing but multiplication of P and Q. Those are the two prime numbers we have considered. M is equal to C raised to D mod n. In the step 5 you calculated the ciphertext which has been sent to the receiver. Receiver would receive C, it would use the decryption key, and applying the modulo arithmetic it would calculate the plain text back. D and N denotes the private key, E and N denotes the public key. Now one more thing before we go to the example of the RSA algorithm, I want to put one more point on the torsion function. So, if you remember the definition of the torsion function, it says if you want to find out the torsion of 11, take all the numbers less than 11 and count how many are relatively prime to 11. That count will give you a torsion function. Now, here the trick is if you have a prime number. So, what would be the numbers less than 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Since this is a prime number, all the numbers less than 11 would be relatively prime to 11 because 11 is prime, so that it has only two factors, 1 and the number itself. So, it is not having any common factor, that is why phi of 11 would be 10. So, in general we can say if I am finding out the torsion of any prime number, it would be nothing but P minus 1. The same characteristic we are going to use here while we are calculating torsion function of n. Rechecking the steps, we have to choose two prime numbers. For our simplicity of computation, we have chosen one prime number to be 17 and another prime number to be 11. Once again emphatically I am saying that this is just for the explanation, we have taken the small numbers, otherwise cryptography uses very large numbers for computation. Compute n, that is equal to P into Q, 17 into 11, that gives 187. Now, torsion function we need to calculate. Since this is a prime, we can take P minus 1, Q is also prime, so we take Q minus 1. So, 16 into 10 gives 160. If you remember the step in the previous thing, what we have to do now is we are up to the second step. The third step says find out or take the encryption key E. What are the criteria? One thing is it should be within 1 and 5n, and the second criteria is its GCD with torsion function should be 1. So, coming back to here, we have torsion function to be 160. Now, we can choose E between 1 and 160. The second criteria is E, GCD of E and 160 should be 1. So, for example, we have selected 7. You can select any number that satisfies these two criteria. Find D satisfying the criteria DE congruent to 1 mod 160. Now, to put my point here, it says D is equal to E inverse mod 5n. So, if D is inverse of E, what I have taught you in the last module, that they if their modulo is taken, they would result in 1 because they are inverse of each other. Remember that when we are computing D and E, we are taking modular arithmetic in relation to 5n. So, this is what it is saying, DE mod 5n equal to 1 mod 5n, so and so D is E inverse mod 5n. If we reframe this, it can be rewritten as DE is congruent to 1 mod 160. 160 is our torsion function. Another restriction on choosing D is D should also be less than 160. So, we have chosen D to be 23 because 23 into 7 is equal to 161, that gives you the remainder 1. I have already taught you the algorithm for finding out multiplicative inverse. So, you can apply that multiplicative inverse algorithm to find out the multiplicative inverse of 7, that would give you the decryption key. We have found out encryption key and decryption key. So, as I mentioned earlier, you can use the extended Euclidean algorithm for finding out multiplicative inverse, and we have reached to a conclusion that the public key is nothing but E and N, that is 7 and 187. Observation is, while computing encryption key and decryption key, we use torsion function, and when we have to publicly announce that what is our public key, we are showing N. Why so? It must be clear to you. If I publicly announce 5n, then one can easily compute decryption key using announced encryption key and announced 5n. So, there would be no secret remaining with us. But if we announce n, it is very difficult to find out factors of n and in turn assume what is the torsion function and in turn calculation of D. Though in our case our example is simple, so 187 seems to be a very small number and finding out the factors is too easy. So, one more conclusion or one more observation we are deriving is always take large prime numbers, so that its a factorization is infeasible. Private key is decryption key, that is 23, and N, that is 187. So, we are ready with private key and public key. We want to pass a message, that is 88, and we want to calculate the ciphertext. So, as per our equation, what we have to do is m raised to e mod n. So, you have m to be 88, e to be 7, mod 187. You have used calculator up till now. Your scientific calculator can compute 88 raised to 7 or not. Just check it out. But if I raise, maybe it may compute 88 raised to 7, but if I do this raised to 25. Would your scientific computer be able to compute 88 raised to 25? To compute such a large exponent, we need algorithm. So, before coming to a conclusion, what is the value of ciphertext for 88 raised to 7 mode 187, I am taking you to another algorithm that finds out the value of the large exponent number. For that, going to the small arithmetic, how do you compute a raised to 16? A multiplied 16 times. So, if I continue with my previous example, if I want to compute 88 raised to 7, I need to compute multiply 88 by 7 times. Am I correct? Did I write 7 times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, but is there any easy way to calculate it? So, a raised to 16 can be achieved by repeatedly squaring each partial result. Saying that 2 plus 4 8, 8 plus 8 16, fine. So, if I want to, I can simply say compute the square, then square square and then compute a raised to 4 square, that is 8, 2 plus 4 6, 6 plus 8 that is 6 plus 8 that is 16, and one more we have to add is. But instead of writing this, what we can do is first compute a square, then square it a raised to 4, then square the number, it would give you a raised to 8, then square the number, you will be ending up in a raised to 16. Observation: every time you have to square the number which you got. But what if it is not even number? If it is a raised to 11, how would you proceed? So, a raised to 11 is nothing but a square and a raised to 8. So, what we need to do? We need to calculate a mod n, a square mod n, and a raised to 4 mod n, and then a raised to 8 mod n. We are interested in a square and a raised to 8, multiply all of them together to get a raised to 11. Now, from the previous slide we came to a conclusion that we have to, for even number exponent, we just need to square the number. If it is odd, we need to multiply it by a single number a. To formalize our method, what we can say is, you want to do the exponent a raised to b mod n, a and b both are the positive numbers, b represented in as binary number bk minus 1, b 0. Taking a small example, suppose b is equal to 4. How would we represent b in the binary number? So, b can be represented as 1, 0 and 0. You all know representation of the binary number. This 0 is 2 raised to 0, this 0 is 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 2. So, binary digit of 1 0 b is 1 0 0. Now, what does equation says? Okay, whenever b I not equal to 0, you add them. So, for this position it is 2 raised to 2, for this position it is 0, so we do not have to add, for this position it is 0, so we do not have to add, so this gives you 4. So, this equation says you convert b into the binary number, whatever position is not 0, that position exponent you take. So, you have to compute it from here. This is a 0th position, this is first position, this is the second position. So, when it is not 0, you take that exponent. So, 2 raised to 2 makes 4. Now, if you want to compute a b mod n, what we have realized that whenever the b I not equal to 0, you have to take the exponent. So, what you have to do is, in our case when b is equal to 4, we have at the second position b I not equal to 0. So, a 2 raised to k mod n. What is k? K is the largest number which we are given. And in general what we want is this should be in general. For our case 4 it is b raised to k, but if it should be 2 raised to I, whichever I position is not 0, the exponent a raised to 2I should be computed and multiplied together. We have understood whatever is the characteristic of the or pattern of the a raised to b mod n. Accordingly, we have formalized the algorithm. Once again, whatever exponent is, convert them into the binary number. Count is initialized to 0, factor is initialized to 1. How we have to proceed? We have to go from k down to 0. So, we would start from the kth position and we will go downward towards 0th position. Count should every time be multiplied. Even if you have not understood my point, I will explain you once again. You convert it to a binary number. So, what you want to do? For example, a is equal to 3 and b is equal to 4. So, what you want to compute is 3 raised to 4. How does it proceed? It says you go k down to 0. So, initially you would be starting from this position. So, it is a second position, you all know this is a second position, first position, you will start from the second position, it is 1, but when you go to the first position, this has to be shifted to the left. You know, when a number is shifted to the left, it is multiplied by 2. When a binary number is shifted to the right, it is divided by 2. Fine. If you are not clear what am I trying to say, suppose this is a 1. If you add, its a position is 0th position right now. If I shift it to the left, that means if I add 0 after this, it has been multiplied by 2. So, now this becomes 1 first position, this becomes 2 raised to 1 and this becomes 2 raised to 0. So, every time I shift it to the left, the number is multiplied by 2. So, irrespective of if it is 1 1 or 1 0, we have to shift it. So, it is multiplied by factor is multiplied by itself, it is doubled and count would be incremented by 2. If this position is 1, what we need to do? We have to add 1 to the count and factor would be factor into a. Why this is so? As I said, every time the number is doubled, right, it is squared. But if this is 1, then we have the base value plays the role. If it is not 1, then simply doubling the values. If the position has a 1 value, that means that base value has to be computed here. If it is 0, you do not have to consider the base value, just double the number while shifting. So, this is a square and multiply algorithm. The point I will just briefly put a point. I has to go from k down to 0, count should be multiplied by 2, factor should be multiplied by itself. As I said, every time you from k you move to k minus 1 to 0, every time you are shifting to left. So, number is doubled. Now, next is if bi equal to 1, then the base value has to play a role. So, factor has to be multiplied by a and count has to be multiplied by 1, because at this position you got 1 value. So, count should denote that. At the end, the factor is the value which is the result of a raised to b mod n. So, you have to return the factor. For example, if we want to do a raised to b mod n, so in this case I am calculating 5 raised to 339 and modulo 341. So, what is the first thing we are going to do? We are going to convert 339 into the binary value. So, this is the binary value. Now, you put at which position? This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, there are 8th position 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. You remembered the algorithm. The algorithm says you have to go to k down to 0. So, we will be starting with the 8th position going to 0th position. So, I have reflected this value 1 0 1 0 1 0 0 1 1 into the table. As per the algorithm, first in the first step the count is equal to 0 and factor is equal to 1. In the kth position we have the bi equal to 1. So, let us check how the algorithm works. Irrespective of bi, we have to count 2. So, initially the count value would be 0 into 2, 0, factor would be factor into factor, that is 1. At this position bi is 1. So, what we have to do? We have to increment the count by 1 and factor would be factor into a. What was the value of a in our case? Value of a was 5. So, we have to say 5 into 1, that is 5. So, at the after the first iteration we would be getting count to be 1 and factor to be 5, count to be 1 and factor to be 5. Now, repeat the steps for 7 7th position where bi equal to 0. What you are going to do right now when bi equal to 0? At this time count would be 2 into count. So, what was the value of count? 1. So, 1 into 2 it would become 2. What was the value of the factor? 5. So, 5 into 5 that is 25. So, it is reflected here. So, keep on computing. What you should observe that in the last iteration you will get the b value, count value to be equal to the b value, that is 339, and whatever is the factor value, that is your result of 5 raised to 339 mod 341. If this algorithm would not have been there, think of a situation how you would have calculated 5 raised to 339 and then applying the modulo 341. So, now we have a solution when we go for 88 raised to 7 mod 187, apply the square and multiply algorithm in this way and compute the c, and c would result in 11. This is left as an exercise, applying the algorithm and finding the value of 11. For decryption, our decryption key is 23. So, take a ciphertext 11 raised to 23 mod 187, that would result in 88. Is RSA algorithm secure? For that we are analyzing that there are likely attacks on the RSA algorithm. First is brute force. Brute force means applying all possible keys. Now, how would we work around RSA algorithm? You all know for RSA algorithm the public key is E and M. How to calculate D? D is nothing but E inverse. So, if n is known and if you can factorize n into p into q, you can easily find out 5n and from that easily find out d. So, finding out the factors of n, it is again a brute force attack. Factoring the modulus is the brute force attack. Nowadays, for your knowledge, the current fastest factoring algorithm is general number filled sieve algorithm. You can explore the algorithm, how it finds out the factors. Now, suppose there are the second problem is mathematical attack, finding factors, the product of two primes. I already covered it in the brute force attack, saying that trying out all possible factors of n, we included it into the brute force category as well. It is also called mathematical attack. The third attack is timing attack. depends on how much time decryption algorithm is taking. For example, the attacker is trying to notice the precise time of decryption. If you know this, now you know square and multiply algorithm, how does it work? So, if the value is 1, bi value is 1, we are calculating the factor into the base value, that is a, fine. So, it would take more time than bi equal to 0. So, attacker by noticing how much time does it take, it can find out whether it is 1 at that position or 0 at that position. So, that is a timing attack. And the fourth one is hardware attack, fault caused due to hardware. The RSA algorithm may have been implemented in a hardware, and if there is any error in the processor, it would be called hardware attack. The last attack is chosen ciphertext attack. This says that attacker has chosen a ciphertext, and for that he is given the plain text pair. So, for the attacker's choice of ciphertext, the plain text pair is given. RSA algorithm for the same encryption decryption key and for the same modulo and Toshan function generates the same ciphertext for the given plain text. So, if plain text passed is same, the attacker can find out what is the, if the ciphertext remains the same, attacker can find out what can be the plain text for this ciphertext. Now, what is the solution for all this? So, mathematical attacks are very difficult because very large prime numbers are taken and finding out factors is usually taking much time. For the timing attack, the random delay is introduced between the operations, so that attacker cannot easily guess what kind of how much time it has taken. For the chosen ciphertext attack also, there are random padding of the text is done in the plain text. So, it every time it generates the different ciphertext. Now, distribution of public keys, it is a question how a public key can be distributed. There are 4 ways: announcing publicly, storing in a directory that is publicly available, authority, there must be some authority to pass the public key, and certificate that consists of public key. For the distribution of public keys announced publicly, so there is a bulletin board where A would put its public key and everyone can read it out, what is the public key of A. The second is storing in a directory that is publicly available. So, there is a common storage that is called public directory. A has written its public key there, B has written the public key there. If A wants to read B's public key, it will go to this public directory and find out what is B's public key. What would be there in the directory? There would be a name and public key entry. Each participant has to register its public key in the directory, and participant can only access through electronically. The third way is there is an authority, public key authority, to pass the public key. Now, in this case there are certain steps, those are followed. There is an initiator and responder. So, A wants to communicate to B. So, A needs B's public key, so and B needs A's public key. So, in that case there would be a request generated with a timestamp attached to it. It would go to whom? It would go to public key authority. What a public key authority sends back? It sends the public key of B, the request and the timestamp back. The whole 3 things concatenated together, what 3 things? Public key of B, the request which A sent, and it is a timestamp with a private key of authority. No wonder you must have visualized that when a public key authority encrypts with a private key, initiator A should have a public key of authority. So, in that case public key of authority, initiator would get it. what an initiator would do now, it would decrypt with the public key of authority and get what? Public key of B. Now, what happens with a initiator would encrypt its own ID and one number, it is called nonce. It is a random number generated by A for handshaking. Handshaking is done between A and B to just to verify that A is talking to B and B is talking to A. So, what A did, A got its identity and one random number called N1 appended together, and now A has a public key of B. So, encrypted the things with public key of B. B has to go to public key authority to communicate to A. So, it would again generate a request with timestamp. Once again public key authority would send back the public key of A and the original request back to B. B would decrypt it because B has a public key of authority and it would get the public key of A. Now, what B will do, whatever B has got from A N1, it would generate its own random number N2, append with N1 and send it to A. A would do what? It would use the public key of B and send back the N2 to B. This is called handshaking. N1 was sent by A, B verified the N1, B sent back N1 and N2, A verified the N1 is the same that it sent, so that it can verify that it has definitely talked to B. And second thing is the B has sent N2 as well, which will be sent back to B, so that B can find out that B has talked to the person A, which was the genuine person. So, what has been observed that the N1 and N2 are used for the handshaking process. The last way of distributing the public key is certificate consisting of the public key. So, there is a certificate authority who generates a certificate. What are the contents of the certificate? Certificate contains the public key. So, certificate authority generates the public key for A and B. What A has to do? A requests certificate authority provide me the public key. Certificate authority will give you a certificate consisting of the timestamp, identity of A and public key of A, all encrypted with the help of private key of the authority. A has a public key of authority, so it will apply the decryption operation with a public key and it would get the T1 timestamp, identity of A and public key of A. Now, why timestamp is needed? Because certificate is valid for certain period of time only. So, this timestamp would decide that this public key is valid or not. The same way, if B wants its public key, it would request to the certificate authority. Certificate authority would generate a timestamp, ID of B and public key of B, all concatenated together and encrypted with a private key of certificate authority. What B can do? B can decrypt on its side and get the public key of B. This is the way how A and B gets its public key. So, in this module we have seen how the RSA algorithm works. We have seen what kind of attacks can occur on the RSA algorithm, and then we have seen how to compute the large exponent with the help of square and multiply algorithm, and lastly we have seen if the public keys are at all to be made public, what are the ways to do so. Public key algorithms are usually heavy in operations, costly in operations. Costly exponent operations are always costlier. So, usually encryption and decryption is done through symmetric keys. So, public key algorithms or asymmetric key algorithms are largely used to exchange the symmetric key for the sender and the receiver. Public key algorithms are RSA algorithm, and Diffie-Hellman key exchange algorithm is also there, but RSA algorithm is widely used. Thank you.